to the show, huh?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another day, another opportunity for us to be awesome to one another and live an awesome life. Hope that you are enjoying your day so far. My name's Dave. This is Steve Edwards, and every week we get together to talk about the most awesome equine in the world, the mule and the donkey. Today is no exception, and we are so glad that you are here with us today. Steve, it's been 7 days. We have reached almost the middle of the year, almost the longest day of the year. How are things going out there on the ranch?
Oh, it's amazing. We've got plenty to do. We got the house all painted, a bunch of other stuff painted, a bunch of trees trimmed, and of course I always prepare for fire. So we've been working on brush for quite a while, but it's been busy around this outfit. Yeah, been busy.
I thought you were retired.
Retired's only doing what you want to do when you don't want to do it.
That's funny.
I've retired 4 times. I've just gone from one thought to another, and so all it is, and you'll get this as you get older. When you are retired, that means my wife has more time to give me more things to do.
There you go. Yeah, trade one to-do list for another. My dad and my mom, they've been retired for several years, and I think I see my dad at their house less now than it. Like, of course, I go there every day because I work there. That's where I office out of, and I'll bet you, I don't know, 4 out of the 5 days of week that I'm there, he's gone, and I don't see him during the day at all. And I'm like, man, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know, man. I'm retired. I'm busy. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's it, right? You fill it up with other stuff.
I always wondered why all these old guys had other little side jobs or shops out. It just kept you separated for a while.
Yeah. Well, hey, Steve being semi-retired, he fills up his time every Tuesday with us to talk mules and donkeys. We're glad that you're here. You can already see folks there, whether you're watching on Facebook or whether you're watching on YouTube. You can already see folks putting in their information. What are they saying? Well, they're sharing. The first thing that we ask is that you share your name, where you're watching from, and what the weather is like. We love meeting other folks. Matter of fact, Steve was just in Montana 2 weeks ago, and nearly everybody that was there for the clinic, participants and spectators, we'd met online through this program right here. So we sure would like to be able to meet you too. Put your name, where you're watching from, and what the weather's like in the comment section. It's just a real easy way that we can get to know you. We see you week in, week out, get to know your story. You get to know our story, and we make the world a little bit better place, a little bit brighter place by getting to know you. The second thing that we ask is that you share any and every mule or donkey question that you have. Now, you might think, oh, this is probably a dumb question. Wrong answer. You might think, oh, they probably already talked about this. Wrong answer. No, we want to talk about what's going on with you. This program is 100% about you. And so I have a few folks that have messaged emails in over the course of the last week, and we'll get to their questions, but we want to get to your questions too. We want you to feel like next time you step out, you approach that mule, approach that donkey, you open up their stall gate, you can catch them on your terms. And you can put that come-along rope on them. And then you can take them and you can do the mechanics and you can do the foundation training without feeling like, good grief, they're not listening to me. They don't want to do what I'm asking them to do. We want to make you the herd leader as best we can. And if there's extra things that we need to do outside of this, well, Steve's always available and muleranch.com is always available too. So we want to hear from you. Ask any and every mule or donkey question you got. Matter of fact, if you're thinking about one right now, go ahead and put it in that comment section and we will get to it. We sure will be happy to get to it. Third thing that we ask is that you share the broadcast with friends and family. That's real easy to do. On both Facebook and YouTube, you just click the share button. On both Facebook and YouTube, you just type a comment. If you're on Facebook, tag a friend, tag a family member like you would with any other post. And you can click the like button too. With that, I'm going to start saying hello to some of the friends that are already hanging out with us. And if you're watching and you haven't put in your name, where you're watching from, what the weather's like in there, do it now. I'm calling you out. I'm calling you to greatness. And that greatness starts by introducing yourself to the world. Ben is watching, says no audio. So maybe go ahead and refresh, try a different browser, Ben. I think we've got other folks who are, I haven't had any other folks reporting that. Maybe that'll get it fixed up. Eileen is watching. Hello, everyone. Breezy, 82 degrees with rain coming in Nebraska today. Terp is watching. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Sunny, 94-ish in the south. Sherman Johnson is watching. Johnson Taxidermy. Norman, Oklahoma, 93 degrees. Warren is watching, says it's muggy, 76 with rain in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Matter of fact, Steve, this is not the first time we have said the word Shelbyville, Tennessee on this program. Tell us why we have talked about Shelbyville, Tennessee in the past.
Oh, last year I was really blessed. I got to go to the second annual American Mule and
Bluegrass Festival, American Mule and Bluegrass Music
Festival. Oh yeah, and it was great. I mean, I was only supposed to do just a little couple-hour clinic, and to kind of answer questions and folks, and it was over 6.5 hours when we got done, and then I still had other people come along asking questions. That's what I'm there for. So I said all that to say this: we are coming again this year, my wife and I this time, and we're going to fly in, and then we're going to go see Mr. Coffee, Pengelly himself, and then we will go with him and his wife, and we will come over to Shelbyville, and there I will be doing some clinics. This time we're going to have some a round pin set up and some other things, and we'll try to do a little extra. But all the funds, all the dollars and cents that are made in this program go directly to the veterans. All that, So I'm there giving my time, and whatever they pay and this sort of thing is up to them. And I'm going to be working with individuals as well. And a little plus, I'm going to have some of my saddles and tack there. People were asking about it. I wasn't really there to quote sell it last year, but this year I decided to go ahead and do it. That way I'll have a few things there where people can actually put their hands on them, actually sit in a saddle, things like this. Anyway, I'm going to try to do lots of hands-on things, and I will have some people there with some mules that need some communication skills.
That'll be a lot of fun. Folks are always sending messages. Hey, how can I get some time with Steve? And I'll tell you what, folks, Steve really enjoys getting to meet you at these events. It's not one of those where you kind of stand back. I remember seeing one of my favorite basketball players inside the Apple store once, and this was probably about 10, 12 years ago. And I walk in there and I'm looking around the Apple store, and there's lots of great stuff. I love Apple computers, the iPhone, all the stuff. And I'm walking, and my wife taps me on the shoulder, and she says, "Who is that?" And I look over, and I see this big, tall man standing there with his family. And you can kind of see, like, folks are standing back just staring at him. And I look at her, I said, "That's Amari Stoudemire. He plays NBA basketball for the Phoenix Suns." Oh my gosh. And I really wanted to go up and say something to him, but I was like, man, he's with his family. He's shopping for a computer. I don't like being bothered when I'm shopping for a computer. I'll just let it be. But that's not the way it is with Steve Edwards. If you see Steve Edwards, you walk up, you say hello, introduce yourself. Steve's always excited to get to meet folks, and he may have a great story to tell you too. When you tell him where you're at in the country, he may have a story. So if you get out to Shelbyville, Tennessee this fall, make sure you say hi to Steve when you see him. Dave is watching from East Texas. Dave O'Brien, glad you had a great clinic. It's very hot and humid here in East Texas. Linda, the mule servant, in rural central Ohio, cloudy and temperate after a couple solid days of much needed rain. I do not know, unless someone's from Seattle, I don't know anybody that says we did not need this rain. Everybody says much needed rain. So Seattle folks, send it our way. David Pengelly says it's a rainy night in Georgia. Chris Cooper is watching from sunny South Mississippi. Jack from Johannesburg is watching with mid-70s, windy here today, he says. Mike is watching from Sonoma County, Northern California. My mule, Sonny, is 16'3", gated guy. Have all Steve Edwards gear. Works right and makes sense. Mike, I may just have to put that on the website. Love reading that. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Renee is watching. Irene from Washington State, overcast and cool. Send us the rain, Irene. Send it our way. Bruce is watching from New Braunfels, Texas. 104, hot and dry. Just baled hay this weekend. Need some rain. See, that's what I'm talking about, Irene. We need the rain. Send it our way. David says, how do you give a booger hunting mule more confidence? How do you give a booger hunting mule more confidence, Steve?
All right. Number one, anytime we have a mule that's looking for monsters, the first thing I think about is what kind of feed am I feeding this animal? Because a lot of carbohydrates makes them kind of looking around every bush for the monsters out there. And the booger hunting is kind of normal, because the second part of that is when they're overly booger hunting, then we're overly feeding them incorrectly. And so we want to stay away from carbohydrates or anything that would be, we're going to call it candy, sugar. In other words, no grains, no alfalfas, things like that. Okay, now the next thing is you are riding a herd animal. He is on the bottom of the pecking order when it comes down to animals. He is also the bottom of the food chain. So behind every bush, some of these mules, especially if they're into a lot of carbohydrates and stuff, they're thinking there's going to be a monster going to eat them. So that's when we have to be forward riding. We have to have our hands ready in direct riding position so that we can quickly correct the nose going left or right. It's kind of like driving your car down the road. All right? You're driving down a car down the road. If you look off to the left, guess which way you do? You end up driving off the left. If you look off the right, what do? You end up going there. If you take your hands off the steering wheel, what happens, folks? That car just goes anywhere. Same thing with your mule. When they start booger hunting, you need to be on red alert. Get your hands in direct reining position and immediately get your legs ready, because here's what's going to happen. They're going to feel being comfortable is back here. Being uncomfortable is going forward. So what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to kind of stay back here because they're worried about back in the bushes and things like this, okay? So you're going to have to use your legs to make them uncomfortable, to make them to go forward. You're going to have to use your hands, put your hands down, because when your legs ask them to go forward, your hands tells the nose to go forward. Here's the problem. What happens with folks? They end up pulling on the reins because they're concerned about the animal maybe making a mistake, and they're using their legs. So you're telling the mule, stop, go, stop, go. So you need to practice with this animal, and you can take them. You've got an area they don't want to go through. You can take them off to the left, then the right eye can see it. Go off to the right, left eye can see it. So left brain, right brain can follow the pattern and go straight. So booger hunting, what kind of feed are you feeding? Tell me about that. Also, what kind of bridle are you using?
Awesome. One of the things that I've found just interesting is just how interconnected it all is together. How one thing, like you talk about, why does my mule do that? Or are you listening to your mule? And the thing is if it's your first year, second year, third year, fourth year with an animal, you may not know the signs that they are communicating with you, but they are telling you something. They are trying to let you know. And what I think is just interesting, I remember you talk about the teeth being floated, and very early on into this program, folks would be saying, oh, my mule's doing this or my mule's doing that. And it seemed to have nothing to do with their mouths whatsoever. But the first thing you would say is, well, have you had the teeth floated? I'm like, well, why would that matter? Well, because of the angle of their head, there's going to be some movement in the jaw. And if their teeth have not been floated, they're going to have sharp angles because they grind their feed instead of chew it. They grind it, and so it develops sharp angles on the teeth, and then in the align, and it's just all connected. And one thing impacts like four others. So that's why I love this program. We get to hear stuff like that. One little tiny question unlocks a treasure trove of information, and I know folks will attest to that. So that's a great question. Thanks so much, David. Appreciate that. Sue says, aloha and good afternoon from overcast, warm, and breezy Oahu, Hawaii. Okay, Sue, I have a question for you. I want to take my wife to Hawaii. I want to stay on the beach. I want to stay at a place where it's relaxing. We don't have to go anywhere else, whether it's a resort or it's a little area. Do you have any recommendations? I am taking and soliciting recommendations for Hawaii, Sue. Scott is watching from South Carolina, 71 and stormy. Let's see here. Myra is watching 74 degrees and sun is finally shining here in Southern California. Rochelle is watching. Good evening, my friend. Thinking of joining you in Tennessee. Take that thinking, turn it into reality, Rochelle. It would be awesome. Dave O'Brien says, Steve, I know you say don't tie your babies. My Molly is 28 months. Is it time to teach her to stand? What little I have tied her, she fights it big time. Thank you. So let's ask the first question. Why would you not tie your babies? And then the second question, 28 months, is it time to teach her to stand? She fights it.
Okay, so here's the deal. When that halter is on their head, and that, let's just call it 500 pounds for lack of another idea of the weight. They're tied to the hitching post. They pull back. All of those vertebrae and muscles and this sort of thing are being pulled on, and the shoulder. Some of them even flip back over backwards and hit on the ground. So you're creating a catastrophic problem for a chiropractor to work on. Because you see, they don't understand. All of a sudden they feel pain from pulling back. And that scares them even more. Then they blow up because then flight and fright kicks in. That's why I tell you folks, don't tie. You don't need to tie. None of you need to tie. Okay. Can you tie once in a while? Yes. Okay. But here's the thing. If you do your ground communication correctly with the come-along rope, all you have to do is lay that rope on the ground, pick up their feet, brush them. That's what we did 2 weeks ago up in Montana. Everybody was ground tying. Everybody was picking up their feet. Everybody was saddling, and nobody was tying, folks. No. So I said, I'd say this, you got to think that if you get your groundwork done first with your come-along rope, they understand that when they look to the left, uncomfortable. They look to the right, uncomfortable. They pull back, uncomfortable. And you see, then if we put them on a halter that's adjusted correctly, and they already have the foundation of the come-along rope, then when they look to the left, it bumps them. Look to the right, it bumps them. They pull back, it bumps them. Now notice, I'm saying bump. If the babies or any of your mules have a good foundation with the come-along rope, the split second they feel discomfort, they will come back forward, or they would come back center. They won't be wanting to go to the right or to the left. Is it a good thing to tie later on? Yes. Why is that? Because if you tie them in the center of the hitching rail and they look to the right, they bump themselves. They look to the left, they bump themselves. They pull back, they bump themselves. So it teaches them to be straight without you having to be there. But first, folks, I'm always telling you, but first, do your come-along work first. Teach them straightness first. Don't get in a hurry to tie your babies. Now, we used to take a car inner tube back when they had inner tubes. Probably some of you don't even know what that is. They'd take a car inner tube, and we used to put it on a hitching post and let them pull back on that, thinking it wouldn't hurt them. Yeah, it did. Still crippled them. Still had the problem, you know. So the groundwork with the come-along rope, number one thing you need to do.
Very good. Great question. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. And one of the things I love about Dave, all of our folks, in to be precise, but or to be more general, Dave has been working and been making incredible progress. He keeps coming back with new questions. He keeps coming back with new things. And to be quite frank, sometimes I look at Dave's questions and I'm thinking like, wow, the guy is just trying to absorb as much as he can. Yeah. And folks think that they need to get a trainer out there to begin working on these animals. And half the time, more than half the time, they find out that trainers wind up doing more damage than good, unknowingly, because they haven't worked with the mule. They haven't worked with the donkey. They're just taking equine training and they're applying it as best they know how. And here you've got Dave, who just year after year keeps coming back and asking questions. And I just think it's great. I think it's admirable. I think it's fantastic and makes for a great show. So thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Eileen says, could we talk about the coronary band? Should it be flush and smooth with the hoof? What if it is slightly raised around the hoof, but the leg hairs lay flat around it? So what is the coronary band, and should it be flush and smooth with the hoof?
Okay, so here's your hoof, and here's my sleeve. That is the hair, the coronary band going across there. Now, you should be able to touch it, and it should be soft all the way around there. If you get any places that's real puffy, or if it's real hard, then you got a possibility of some damage that could be, ring bone is very prevalent in a mule, simply because a lot of people do stupid things with them, like jump them off of rocks and things like this. Don't get me wrong, they're good at jumping, but you can have all your weight in there at the same time can be a problem. So yes, that coronary band should feel pretty much the same all the way around. If there's, I use Epsom salts a lot of times to kind of soak it to bring down if there's any type of problem. I also use Absorbine, and I cut all the hair off and trim it way back. And then I rub it down with Absorbine really good. And then I use cellophane on it to be able to create a poultice. And then I use vet wrap on it to make it tight. And that helps if it's just a matter of stone bruising or maybe just overwork. But you may have to get a veterinarian out there to x-ray it to see if you've got right ring bone. That's one of the things you guys need to be looking for. When you buy a mule, vet check, and make sure that they test for ring bone. Make sure that they do radiology and this sort of thing around that scapula, because people are using saddles that they're calling mule saddles, or that they say their horse saddle will work, and they end up crippling these animals, and you might pay for it later on because 2 years down the road, the mule that you bought 2 years before that was ridden in a horse saddle and trained in a horse saddle is now crippled, and you don't know that it was from 2 years ago, but you could tell by that scapula. Now, and x-ray. Now, white hairs, go back to white hairs. White hairs do not say a saddle fits incorrectly. White hair says you over tighten the front cinch. White hair says that you use a wool pad and it scalded the animal's back. White hair says that when you start seeing white hairs, that means that the hair follicles are breaking down and you have a hard time sweating. That's why I developed the pad to be able to keep the animals so that they sweat, which creates lubrication, so that they sweat, which creates cool back. That's what you want. So going back to this, the ring bone is very prevalent, especially in the front legs. And so a veterinarian can shoot some pictures around that and see what's going on.
Next question. This one came in from Cassia from North Queensland, Australia, and that means international. Thank you, Cassia. When you go out hunting and change camps, do you hobble or nightline your mules, or do they just stay close by?
Well, it depends on the situation. At Yosemite, we had a gelding that we hobbled the back foot on to a tree with about 40 foot of rope. And then we turned all of our mules loose. Now, there are other times to where we're in a camp for several days. We either got a cow camp or we got a hunting camp. And then we hobble a back leg off of each mule. The reason I say back leg, because if you hobble just a one front leg, then they get a chance of getting rope burns on the back legs. So I always hobble a back leg and hobble it to a tree and go. Now, if you don't have a lot of places to hobble to, then you can cross hobble. So you'd use a hobble on the leg and you hobble the left front, right rear, or right front, left rear. And then they have to scoot. You never hobble 2 front legs for grazing. That is only when you hobble 2 front legs, is to teach them to stand still and quiet, not to move. A mule that moves with the 2 front legs hobbled is a mule that has not been trained properly to the hobble. So those are the things I do. I've got a good video out, by the way, Dave, about that called Wait Here. And you can see the different foundations that I use for teaching animals to hobble and high line and this sort of thing. And we can send it to Australia digitally too.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm going to put a link in the comment section. Y'all can check it out. It's Wait Right Here, the basics of hobbling, high lining, and picketing. And it's available online. You could get it on demand. All of the training videos are available to stream online. And we've got a bunch on YouTube. We've got a bunch of paid instruction on muleranch.com. Bill Rose is watching. Sharing to the mule pages in the heartland. Overcast and cool 68 degrees. Got my parcel in the mail today. Nice looking t-shirt. Thanks, fellas. Send a picture in, Bill. We'd love to share it. Terp says, why does my older Jack get mean with a younger Jack when he is with me getting rubbed?
Because he feels the older Jack could possibly overpower him. You have to remember that Jacks have a deity, and the older Jacks are in charge. And when that younger Jack comes into his space, that puts him on the fight. Never do you want to have 2 Jacks in the same pen together. You could be a piece of meat in a short time because you'll be getting between them and they'll be pounding on you as much as they're trying to pound on each other. Plus, you got a good chance of each one of them harming each other because of their biting and their kicking. Keep your Jacks separate, just like any other animal. I always tell you, put them in a 20 by 20 stall, and that's where they spend their life. And especially a Jack, that can be that animal can hurt you and take your life in a matter of split seconds because they're an intact male and they're only thinking about one thing, and that is for breeding.
Moving right along. Morgan is watching, says, ordered the ground foundation and 2 halters, 2 come-along ropes. In the meantime, we are just not being too demanding unless they push us. Any suggestions for starting off till we accumulate more knowledge? Thanks for the invite to the show today.
Okay, so when they come into your space, they're starting to come. There's 2 things you can do that makes it really quick. Number 1, always keep this in your mind. You can go into their space, i.e. the shoulder. They cannot come into your space. They are never allowed to come in within 3 foot of your space. Never. That they can make you hurt in a short time just been pushing around. So number 1 thing is we think about space. So they're coming to you, and then you want them to stop at a certain place. Take your foot and kick a little dirt toward them. They'll stop and look at the dirt like, well, why did that dirt move? And then while they're thinking about that, you go to the shoulder. You always go to them. Do not allow a mule or a donkey to come to you, simply because they'll start getting into your space. They'll start pushing you, and pushing goes into biting. Biting goes into kicking, and you will not be happy with the end result. You are the herd leader, just like that Jack, just like those 2 Jacks. That Jack knows that younger Jack is not to come into his space. And the younger Jack knows that, but he will always try to challenge him so that he could be on the top of the breeding line, i.e. the pecking line.
Awesome. Katie is watching from Dry Manhattan, Illinois. I have a mammoth donkey and 2 mules. I love the come-along hitch. You are not the only one singing the praises, Katie. As a matter of fact, on the Mule Ranch website, muleranch.com, the come-along rope has more 5-star rating. Just about everything on there is 5-star rated, but there are more ratings total, more 5-star ratings on the come-along rope than anything else. It is only the good Lord works miracles, but this thing comes in a close second to. It's a near miracle. All the things that you are able to do. And maybe with a little bit of prayer, God will use that come-along rope to achieve a miracle as well. Deborah is watching from Orchards, Washington, rainy and 58. Hey, you Washington folks, team up and send that rain down here to us in the Southwest. Linda and Eileen are talking back and forth. Love hanging out. Love seeing that. Laura is watching from New York. Overcast between rain showers. Laura's going to send some rain to these southern areas too. Steph is watching. Says, I have been working on teaching my mini donkey to drive. I have hitched her about 4 times now. I think she is doing fine, but I could use some tips on teaching her to turn in the cart. Steve, what can Steph do to help this animal start turning in the cart? It's a mini donkey.
Right. Number one thing, folks, for any your riding or your driving is surcingle work. Surcingle work, surcingles work, surcingle work. Because the surcingle with the halter on it first teaches the mule, the donkey, headset, frames them up. Top of the hip, top of the wither, top of the head. Frames them up straight. You need that, all right? Now, the next part is you start with the halter, and then you go into the mule rider's martingale, and then that teaches them to get their head down, their nose on the vertical, and listen to the bit. Now, when you make your turns, always remember in the very beginning, make big, big, big turns because they have to side pass in that. So one of the things I like to do before I put my minis or any of them into a cart is I face them against the wall, and I teach them to go side to the right, side to the left, start preparing them for the cart, side passing. So it also depends on your hands. Now, think about your hands as a driver. One of the videos that you should be thinking about getting is called Communicating Through the Lines. There you'll see me training on a mini mule. You'll see me working with one of my apprentices. You'll see how my hands are used. Here's what I want you to think about doing. When you have your hands here, when you pull your hand back, your elbow is not supposed to go past your belly button, your buckle, okay, whatever you have. But if you pull out too far, you'll make them run through the shoulder, and they'll have a hard time making their turn. So a lot of it has to do with your abilities with your hands. But the next thing is preparation with the surcingle is extremely important.
I put a link in the comment section to the Communicating from the Lines video, so y'all can check that out. I also wanted to let everyone know, just in case you're interested, Steve, we've got over a dozen formal instruction videos on the Mule Ranch website. However, if you don't make it past the first page, you may not see that we actually have Steve's entire video collection available on the website, and you save a couple $100 if you purchase all of the videos in that complete collection. So I'll put a link in the comment section there. We don't say that you have to order anything. The only thing that we strongly recommend is the Ground Foundation Starting Kit. That comes with the Near Miracle Worker come-along rope. And then it also comes with a training video, and it comes with the rope halter. Now, you don't need the rope halter right away. Matter of fact, you're going to need the rope halter very sparingly. But when you get to surcingle training and a few other particular training techniques, you're going to want to have that rope halter available because the knots are pre-adjusted in the right place so you can allow the halter to do the work for you, and you're not having to do all of this making the halter work. So when you do need an adjusted rope halter, this thing is pre-adjusted so that it communicates the right way. So I'm going to put a link in the comment section to both of those.
Well, the halter's we don't pre-adjust it. They have to pre-adjust it to their animal.
Oh, okay. It's the knots are in the proper spaces. That's what I meant. So yeah, I apologize. I misspoke.
They'll have to adjust those in the proper places because right now they're going to be too wide. So when they make their adjustment, it'll come to be narrower. And well, we can see all the videos that I have on adjusting halters.
Absolutely. And I don't know. Do you hear something? Do you hear something? You got it. You got it.
I'm adjusting the halter.
That's right.
To fit the mosquito.
That halter can be adjusted all the way down to fit a mosquito.
Yes.
Will it fit the mini? Yes.
Yeah. Yes. The key thing is on these halters that we want communication on the nose, underneath the chin, and on a pole. It doesn't make any difference how much extra you're hanging down here or underneath here. It makes a difference in connecting to those 4 points.
Awesome. Very good. I love getting these questions. Y'all are just bringing it today. Absolutely fantastic. Let's see here. Man, lots of great comments coming in today. Okay, David is watching, says, I feed 10% protein feed. I use a shank solid copper bit with a medium port. And so David is following up to his comment earlier today, the hunting mule more confident, Steve. So I know you're going to have something to say about the copper bit. He's feeding 10% protein.
Well, okay, we can feed 10% protein, but what kind of carbohydrates are in there? That's really important, So look for your things that create carbohydrates. The other thing is copper. Don't put copper in a mule's mouth. It creates a static electricity. I didn't think about this until I got to talking to an old veterinarian. No copper in a mule's mouth. Because the mule is a hybrid, it creates some problems in the mouth. So when you're training, always use, like I have my mule rider's martingale. So the snaffle bit communicates crisp and clear. So that will help you tremendously. But no copper, folks. Copper is going to create problems for you in the future.
Let's see here. Still hanging out. He says, and he follows up, my other mules are fed the same, using the same bit with the same bridle setup. None of them have the monster hunting problem. Yeah. So, I mean, every day is a different day for a mule or donkey. We've got the T-shirt, which I think it just speaks to how they're going to react differently at different times too. Right, Steve?
Right. I mean, I tell people all the time my story of my wife and I are in the house. She's in her element in the kitchen, and she's working away in the kitchen. All of a sudden, she comes in, and I come in, and I say, honey. She goes, ah! Well, I stalled her. I took her out of her frame of mind of just kind of being where she was comfortable, and I made her uncomfortable. Not that I scared her, it's just that I caught her off balance. So these mules, you'll get some of them that don't have the confidence, but a lot of it has to do with feed. And with that copper, it gives some mules more problems, gives some mules less problems. But still, if you want to here's what I always tell people. Today, you may be doing okay. 10 days from now, 30 days from now, all of a sudden the mule's finally said he's had enough, and he'll get a hold of that bit and take off. So if you're going to train, always use a training snaffle bit. I use a double twisted wire, and I use one on my mule rider's martingale because it sets the head. Just the bit by itself makes them gap their mouth and throw their head in the air, So it could also be this mule is also just, he needs a little bit more pushing, and that's going to take it from you with your legs and your seat to get them to go forward. I just had a lady, I sent you the comment where she had been riding for 2.5 hour rides.
Diana?
She was always worried about using spurs. And she said, I heard you teach about how to use spurs, and now I use them on my donkey, and it's great. She says she's had some great rides. Folks, don't worry about using spurs. You need to have them, okay? Especially if you get a booger hunting mule, because he's thinking go ahead is going to be a problem. So he's the one that's going to rely on you to be the herd leader to get him through the problem.
So Diana sent in that text and says, 2 weeks in a row, I've ridden 2.5 hours in Lake Oroville with no problems through the hills. No slippage of the saddle. Thanks again. And then she follows it up with let's see. I could tell you more. I have never ridden in spurs before and was told I would have to learn how if I was riding a donkey. Well, I now ride with confidence in spurs. Thanks to your video explanation on when, how, and why to use them. I appreciate all the help. So that was real fun to be able to see that. We love getting that sort of stuff coming in. It's just, it sure is just awesome hearing that folks, there's a lot of folks out there who have dreamed about owning one of these animals, who have dreamed about the day when they would have the time or the money or the space or the temperament, whatever the case might be. And there's just nothing a whole lot more frustrating than that time, day, revenue coming, and then it's frustrating and you don't get it. and the animal just doesn't seem to want to be around you, and you just hate going out there when all this time you've been dreaming about it. Well, hey, you just change a couple things. Often you just change a couple things, and all of a sudden it turns from a nightmare into a dream. And not always, but it can. And if you got the patience, right, Steve? Folks are doing it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, you might as well do it, folks, because here's the thing. They learn from another person, it's all well and good. But until you learn what all that person has, quote, taught them, you may have a trained mule, but you don't know what all they different. And most of the time, they're dealing with the horse end of it anyway. They don't really understand the donkey side to truly train that mule. So just do it yourself, just do it yourself. That donkey can learn phenomenal things. You just have to be patient with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Charlene says, I have not heard that yet before. I always started haltering, leading, and trying starting day one on foals I've raced. So that goes back to that question, when should we start doing it? So great that we are able to talk about that. Hey, BK is watching from sunny and windy Marin County, California. Sue says, she's answering my questions. All right, so I'm taking a screenshot here, Sue, because I want to know this. Various resorts in Coalinas, 4 man-made lagoons and leeward side of Oahu may be awesome for you both. Has nice eateries, relaxing golf, awesome sun. Oh man, I can't read this anymore, or else folks are going to start, jealous. So okay, let's see here. Marcia is watching from Virginia. Hot and sticky today. Had to spray my mules. Flies are getting kind of bad. Is that where the Hispania silk can come in helpful, Steve?
Yep. That they got some great products. And they got great products that I found that works on these donkeys and these mules, especially for the ones that have allergies, where they have a lot of bumps on the front legs and on the chest. That Hispania is awesome.
Yep, absolutely. I put a link in the comment section. Y'all can go check that out.
Tell them we said hi.
What's that?
Tell them we said hi.
Tell Hispania we said hi.
Tell Hispania we said hi. Steve said to go there.
Let's see. Oh, man, I lost my spot. Man, there's a lot of comments today, Steve. This is just fantastic. I love it.
Good.
Y'all are great. Daryl is watching, and Bobby Joe are watching from Birmingham, Alabama. Clouds and 88 degrees. Terp says, thank you for the knowledge. Shannon says, Shannon from South Carolina. Spotty storms and 85. Cowboy Ken, our friend here. Cowboy Ken, you've been watching for years. Back when I was saying Cowboy Ken. Hello, guys. Just came in from doing hay. Deborah is watching. Is it okay to keep my mule in a herd? Some say isolate them to improve their herd boundness. This is only an issue some of the time. Gracie is my first mule. This is such a great question, Deborah. I am so glad you asked it. We need to talk about this. Steve, what is the best practice here for Deborah and everyone else in her position?
Okay, I know you all love your mules and you want the very best for them. So number one, their health is extremely important. You need to look at their road apples on a daily basis. That tells you how healthy they are. You need to see their water intake. That tells you how hydrated they are. You need to see how long it takes them to eat. That also tells you about their food intake. And then you also need to be looking for the urination. If you can watch them urinate, the color, if you can see the wet spots, that's another, okay? So now, you cannot do that out in an open pasture. You can't keep track of the health of that animal. Every animal needs to be in a 20 by 20 stall. Now, I had a guy that asked me the other day, he says, they don't quite seem right, Steve. He said, I got all this space and turned them loose. And I said, well, just think about this. You're training on that baby, and that baby depends on you to keep it healthy. And I just gave you the reasons why. You need to be looking at them on a daily basis. You can't do it when they're out in a great big pasture, okay? Now, here's the next thing. When these animals get to playing or they get to challenging each other, somebody gets hurt. And a veterinarian bill is not pretty. You can have tendons be blown. You can have them biting and kicking each other. It can be a problem. Don't think that they're just going to be, everything's going to be wine and rosy. No. There's pecking orders. And one day when one gets mad, he's going to blow up and kapow. Every mule should not, it's not so much for the camaraderie. It's not that at all, but it's so you can keep track of the feed. You can keep them, like for instance at Yosemite, we used to bring in new mules from a couple hundred miles away. Well, within minutes, those mules were pairing up with other mules out there in that big pasture area within minutes. Okay. Now, in that kind of a situation where we're using these mules on a daily basis, we're able to see them on a daily basis, and we're able to know what's going on because we are using them. But when they're just laying out there in the pasture, you're up a creek. Now, here's the next thing, okay? Now, did we have problems with our animals all not being healthy? Yes. Okay, we had that problems. But they could not, with what they were doing there with their pack strings and stuff, they could not keep them in individual stalls, okay? So anyway, that's the only time I could say don't do that. Now, I can also tell you that when it comes down to when you start training, and here's a little story. When I was teaching at Pierce College in LA, we had 10 mules on one side, 10 mules on another side. And we had these mules and donkeys where we knew how much we was feeding them every day, how much they weighed, where they were in their training. Part of my students' criteria was to keep logs on their animals. Now, come Thanksgiving, everybody wanted to turn their animals out in this 10-acre pasture so that they can all run and play together and just have a good time. Well, guess what? I told them, you don't want to do that. It's going to set you back in your training. Plus that, you're not going to be able to keep track of their health. They said, well, we want to try it anyway. So they did. Some of those animals, it took them almost a week and a half, almost probably 40 hours worth of training to get their mind back to where they were. Because see, they're out there running and playing. They're in their homeland. They're with other animals that they can run and play with. They don't need you. Okay. They forget about their training process. And when they're in training, it's imperative you have them in a small stall. Each one of my mules were in a 20 by 20 stall. My wife's mule, when I got her, she was 2 years old. When she passed away, she was 28. She was 26 years in a 20 by 20 stall. That happy mule, we took him hunting, we took him riding. She was great for teaching other people how to ride. She was great in the harness. She was great for working cattle. She was always consistent, always consistent, and never a problem. Same thing with my other mules, my two Shire mules. They were 17 hands high, 1,500 pounds, 1,600 pounds. They were in a 20 by 20 stall all their lives. Nothing wrong with that, folks. They don't need to be out there running and playing, especially they don't need to be out there on a smorgasbord eating way too much carbohydrates and end up like this one mule we got a picture of that's got all these big old fat pockets on its butt.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that one. We've had so much activity in the chat today that I forgot to bring that up. So this one came in from Mark. He says, I hope you're doing well. Let me get this ready to go. Hope you're doing well. I have a question for the expert. I'll let you take this one, Steve. Have you ever seen lumps on the hind quarter of a mule? This mule came to me like this. I have had him for approximately 1 year. I thought he would lose them over time because he appeared to me as if he were overfed, and it looked like fat pockets. After losing his winter coat and sleeking up, they are still there. Do you have any ideas as to what they are? He seems to have a normal behavior and is completely unaffected by whatever it is. I'm including additional pics to show they are only on his rump. He is pasture and not being fed grain. Showed a vet they had never seen it before.
A vet never saw that before? Oh my, that's called grass founder. Those are all fat pockets, okay? Now this mule happens to have had, in his feeding somewhere out in pastures, way too much carbohydrates. And so, as you could tell, his tail, you can't even hardly see. It should be sucked down in. It's not because of the fat pockets. This is grass founder, folks. This is grass founder. And he's very, very lucky that he can still walk. Because usually when they're that grass foundered, they can barely walk. You need to look at their hooves, Dave. Have them look at the hooves and see if they're smooth or if they have wrinkles in them.
Awesome. Very good. Appreciate that, Mark. Thanks for sending that in. Give us an opportunity to talk about it. And folks in the future are going to be able to go back, watch that, and take a look. This one came in. This is Gary. Gary sent a message in saying, hope this is the platform for the question. A week ago, my mule was acting different, stiff legged, not moving but a few inches at a time. He has been out on green pasture. We immediately pulled him off the pasture into a round pen with dirt and have been feeding him grass hay. We thought it might be that he was foundering, but a week after the farrier had been out to trim his hooves, they appear real short. This has happened before where the farrier has gotten them to short and he acted similar to this. I know without seeing him you can't really know, but I sure could use some advice. Like how long does it last if it's founder? If there is something else we can do, thank you for everything you do with mules. So this is similar to that last one, isn't it?
Yeah. Look on the outside of the hooves. See if there are wrinkles going down the hoof or if it's completely smooth. That's really important because from the white line down, you see wrinkles. That can tell you that you've had some overfeeding, and those are heat spots that can create problems in the coronary band that can create grass founder in the legs. See, the heat comes down and founders into the legs. So that's what I'm saying. This one mule with the fat pockets in the hind end, that could be some major grass founder problems. And if the mule is walking along and drops in his hind end, then that you should have him looked at by the vet.
So, got another question here. This one comes in from Laura. She says, in your video about the breast collar, you say to soak it overnight in about 2 gallons of Lexol. Tell me, where can I get 2 gallons of Lexol and which version am I looking for? Now, I went online and I looked at Amazon and you can get 2 gallons there. It's not cheap. I mean, it's not like it's $3. It's pretty costly to get that volume. However, there are multiple versions. Steve, is there one preferred version over another?
I just use Lexol as an example. There are some others there that you can use. There's some less expensive. The main thing is, folks, is with your leather breeching and breast collars, it is imperative you soak them in oil overnight and then let them drip dry and then wipe them clean. See, we can't put enough oil on them to make the Postal Service happy about the oil that's dripping through the boxes and stuff. Even if we put them in plastic bags, then we could end up with it's white moisture where the leather starts going bad. So because you want leather to be out and breathing. So yeah, just any kind of leather oil would work good. Just something inexpensive would be fine. And then just put it in a bucket of oil overnight. That and your breeching as well. That's the nice thing about Beta. You don't have to worry about none of that. Beta,
Yeah.
you just use it.
Yeah, Steve rides with Beta. A lot of folks, we still got the leather. It's an old timey color of leather. It's great, looks awesome. People love it. We continue to offer it because people ask for it. Sometimes they just want that look. But as far as what's going to give you the strongest PSI and what is going to be the least amount of maintenance without compromising any type of performance, that's why Steve's gone with the Beta. And so it's just stronger. It lasts, virtually forever. I mean, I don't think I've heard of any of it breaking or whatnot, but I mean, it's a better solution. If you want the look of leather, we've got that. But if you want, pounds per square inch, least maintenance, Beta. You just take Windex, wipe it down, and you're good pretty much, right, Steve?
Right. You betcha. I mean, you can use neat's foot oil. Neat's foot oil works great. You can get neat's foot oil on Amazon for $10.99. I was just looking at it right here myself to see. I haven't priced it in a while, but 16 ounces is $10.99. And I mean, you could very well use that. But the thing about a gallon of Lexol would last a person their lifetime because you're going to be needing it off and on. Or a gallon of the neat's foot oil. You'll always be using oil on your leather on your saddles.
Yeah, maybe we can put some of that on the website, link people out, so when they ask in the future, we just send them right to what are some good options. That's great.
Yeah.
Moving right along, Lori's watching from Central Florida. We got BK says, "What are your thoughts on the mule grabbing a bite of grass while on the trail? How do you recommend to curtail that habit?" Man, it seems like they're going to do that no matter what, aren't they?
Yeah, they're going to do that, and we don't want to encourage them by walking them around like a dog on a leash and letting them eat all they want. That makes it even worse. So here's the deal: when you're riding, that my wife's little mule was so quick. Stacy was so quick; she could get a bite and go back to being straight quicker than you can catch her. So I created kind of a caveston out of baling wire, and I go around the nose 3 times and twist it, and then I use baling twine to go up over the ears, and she could open her mouth just enough to bump her nose, and when it did, it made her uncomfortable, so it was put on just above the bit. Now that I did for her because she was so good at trying to get a bite, as she could get away with it with anybody. So when you're riding, you don't just want to pull on the bridle. You want to bump on the bridle, right, left, and hit them with your legs, right, left as well, and push them forward through that. But the reason most of the time they're able to get a bite is because you were not paying attention. Now, when the little kids rode Stacy, she knew she could get ahead of them. She already had a plan where she was going to get her next bite, and them little kids had no way to fix it. But you as a rider, if they even think about it, you hit them with both legs, right, left, use your hands, right, left, and tell them that's not going to happen. And also you can build yourself that baling wire cavesson.
Let's see here. We have another friend, Marla, watching. "I have 2 Jennies. Both have tried pretty hard to bite me and my husband. Do you have any tips to stop this?"
Are they young? How young are they?
She does not say.
Okay.
Marla, if you're listening, we'd like to know that.
Okay, so 2 things. It could be the time of the year where they're coming in season. And when they come in season, they get kind of nippy, that's one thing. If you do get them quite nippy, then you may want to get a muzzle on their nose, especially if you get some that get nippy during breeding season. So you can go to my website. You can see my muzzles that I use for grass muzzles. But you may want to keep a muzzle on them, keep it from biting you. Now, I don't slap them in the face. I usually kick them with my leg. So if they bite at you, that means they're too close. Why are you allowing them in your space? You're allowed to go into their space. They're not allowed to come into your space. So if they are in your space that close where they can get a bite at you, you shouldn't be allowing them to do that. And you should be at their shoulder, not their head.
Hannah's watching from Florida. Merlin says, "I'm late. I made it. 101 degrees, muggy. Not a day to be working outside." That's right, Merlin. A day to be inside, hanging out with the mule and donkey folks. Lorraine says, "I have a 13-ish-year-old mule. I don't think she's ever used a back cinch. I'd like to get her used to using one. Any good tips to get her used to it?"
It's just like anything else, Laura. They had to get used to their first bridle, their first bit, their first saddle. So when you pull that cinch up, just pull it up just snug, okay, enough where it's coming against their belly, and tighten it off, and just let them stand at the hitching rail or hold on to the come along rope. And then if they do something silly, that come along rope, you can immediately bump them. But they'll get used to it, folks. It's usually within seconds that they'll get used to it. The big problem is you don't want to tighten the front cinch first and the back cinch second, because then that creates the front of the saddle beam come up in the air like this, and you tighten that front cinch. Then you have to pull down on the back of the saddle. That creates more discomfort. So do the back saddle of the saddle first, okay? Get it snugged down, then the front of the saddle, and you'll do just fine.
Love it. Love folks getting help. Polly is watching from Barnesville, Minnesota, 91 and hot. Katie says, "Can you explain how you should use spurs on a donkey?" Steve, I'm going to send a link out to the video that we have for that. Can you take 15, 20 seconds and just give her the basics? Because the video we have, Katie, we have a full-length spur training that you're going to want to go through. It's about 45, 50 minutes long. Phenomenal. Steve, give her just the very basics right now.
Okay, the basics is this, folks. The spur is the telling end of ask, tell, demand. Ask, tell, demand. You ask with your calf, tell with the side of your stirrup, demand with your spur. You see, that's the language the donkeys understand. That's what they use with one another all the time. So ask with your calf, tell with your side of your stirrup, demand with your spur. Okay. Now, if you were there at my clinic in Montana, you would see us doing that on the ground, where we were actually teaching our animals side pass, turn on the forehand, turn on the hindquarters on the ground before we got on them. Okay. And I think, Dave, we probably got some video somewhere of with a come along rope where we're teaching these animals on the ground where to put your hand and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so one of the things folks don't know until they become a customer and then they sign on, every customer on muleranch.com, when you make your first purchase, you actually get a collection of videos automatically added into your account. And so whenever you go, you log into muleranch.com/my account, you're going to find, now these videos, they're available on YouTube, but they're not curated and they're not put together. So you kind of have to pick and choose, go all around. We curate them. We put them all there on muleranch.com. So if you purchase the ground foundation starting kit, a saddle, video, whatever the case might be, you're going to find the Spurs video in there. You're going to find instructions on the come along rope. You're going to find instructions on the halter, the rope halter. You're going to find instructions for mule and donkey saddle, mastering the saddle. There's going to be videos in there. So if you want to get those videos, just, hey, I don't want to go looking for them across YouTube. Just buy anything on the Mule Ranch site. Find the cheapest thing. Get the ground foundation starting kit. You'll have those automatically loaded into your account. Merlin, didn't mean to do that there.
I got short.
Yeah, this program, I'm learning new things, Steve. Even with all of the things I've learned about live streaming, I'm still learning new things. Didn't know that would happen. Merlin says, use sweet iron. It does much the same as copper with saliva, but don't have the drawbacks of copper. Be sure to check the metal content of what is advertised as sweet iron. Some companies don't use real sweet iron. They use copper alloy and call it sweet iron. Matter of fact, Steve, didn't we have an issue recently where it came in and it wasn't made with sweet iron, and it's a non-negotiable? Your bit has to have the sweet iron.
Yep, I sent the bits back. That sweet iron creates the moisture. You got to have moisture in there. That copper does the same thing. It's fine on a horse, but I kept wondering why I was having all these problems with this mules and donkeys. And I had no veterinarian tell me years ago. He says, yeah. He says, it has to be that bit with the copper creating static electricity, And what do we use in our wiring for wiring a house? Copper.
Yep. Christian says, sorry I'm late. Watching from central Idaho. Rainy and thunderstorms here. I had to trailer a month-old Molly mule with her mom a couple weeks ago. I had hoped she'd follow the mare right into the trailer. But woe is me. Thank goodness for Steve's come-along rope and my hours of watching videos and research. We got her into the trailer. It was amazing to watch how quickly she learned when she took a step forward. The pressure came off. I was very careful not to jerk on her, though, as I didn't want to hurt her neck since she's so young. I just used light pressure until it pinched her nose enough to make her uncomfortable. Mules and donkeys care more about their nose than they do about their mouth. Just the weight of the rope is often enough pressure to get them to respond and to do what it is you need to do. And should you have to go all the way to a demand, that's fine, but you don't start there. It's just a little bump, which is ask. And then bump, tell. And then if they're still not getting it, demand, and they will get it. The goal is not to use pain to get them to submit. The goal is to teach them to respect the halter and to see you as the herd leader and know, look, you can get everything you want. Just follow the halter. Just follow the come-along rope. That's great. Marcia says, when I was 5, I saw Festus on Gunsmoke riding Ruth. I wanted a mule. I will try the Hispania. There we go. Lance is watching. Just saw the invite. Thanks. You got it, Lance. We're glad to have you here today. Bill says we did a 15-mile ride last week with the Queen Valley Mule Pad. Was soaked, but no slipping. The Steve Edwards saddle was barely snug and stayed on perfect. Great products and removes all doubt about saddle fit. Oh my gosh, Bill. Steve's head is getting he's going to have to get a whole new collection of hats, Bill. Thank you very much. That's very, very cool. Good information on the founder. Yeah. Thanks. We're almost done. Steve, it's 4:05. Do you have a few more minutes?
Yep, go.
Okay. David says, one more question. What is the right combination of protein, carbohydrates, and fiber in feeds?
Go to my website. Read the article, Mules Can't Stop Prosperity. Look on the very back of that article, and it gives the ingredient breakdown, and it tells you what you want to have. And that right there will help you when you're feeding pellets. The downside, folks, of hay, we don't know what's in that hay. We have no idea if we need more zinc, less zinc, more of A, Bs, or Cs. We don't know. But if we feed a pellet that has everything, it at least gives you a place to start. And, of course, you can always get a blood sample to figure out what they need, or do a hair follicle sample.
Yeah, local extension centers at many universities will be able to perform that for you. We say what you find at that link is a starting point. Just like you are different from everybody else, and your body is naturally proficient in one vitamin and mineral and naturally deficient in another vitamin or mineral, these animals are the same. And so it's not one size fits all, not only because they're different, but because their use is different. So what you find on that Mules Can't Stand Prosperity article is just a baseline of where you start. If you can't get Lakin milling, you take that the Lakin Light or Star milling, you take that to your feed shop and you say, what do you have that's closest to this? And then based upon what you get back from the blood sample or the hair follicle sample, you can supplement. Let's see here. Lorraine's, we already answered that one. How do I break in the Steve Edwards light saddle? Now the saddle training videos, that tells you what to do with the stirrups and stuff. Is there anything else? This one's from Mike, Stephen. Anything else?
The only other thing is you're going to wet the bottom of the jockeys so that they shape to you. But just watch the video. It shows you how to turn the stirrups and how to keep the stirrups in place. And that's about the only thing you got to do to an ultralight saddle or a trail light saddle.
Trace is watching from Queensland, Australia, and that means international. Just had the Lowood show. My mules did very well. Thank you for all your expertise. Made the difference. Love that. Terp says, thanks for the show today. I must leave a little early, but I'll be back. Hannah says, I have used Light Data Labs, Farrier's formula, extra strength for issues with my mules' hooves with amazing results. There you go. Testimonial there from Hannah. Diane says, seems my donkey will never give me 100% trust. I've had fast good results with your program, but she still has a tendency to bolt. Are some donkeys just always untrusting?
All mules, all donkeys, all flight and fright. You're not going to change it. What's going to change it is your timing to be able to fix it before it becomes a problem, okay? It's not that it's a matter of trust. It's just that the animal is always being an animal. It's always thinking about flight and fright. That's the way they all are, okay? And so you can be going down the road with Fluffy one day and everything has been going good, and all of a sudden they take out and run off from you. It's not unusual. Even a highly trained animal will do the same thing because it's flight and fright. So it comes down to your timing, how quick you are able to fix it before it becomes a problem.
It's great. Let's see here. Hey, that's it. We've reached the end. Yeah. Folks. What a great program today. Thank you all so much for being here. Steve, what do you got?
No, that's basically it. I'm looking forward to the weeks coming up with summertime. I've got some different things going on. My wife is leaving Saturday to go see my grandkids in Florida and take care of them, while my daughter and her husband fly to South Dakota, where her husband, who needs your all's prayers, first of all, needs to be saved, But anyway, he's got some heart issues and is actually dying at a very young age. And so my wife's going there to take care of the grandkids and stuff, and I'll be here to hold down the fort. Jess and I hold down the fort. But other than that, we're going to get through the summer. I've got a buffalo hunt that I'm going to be going on up at the Grand Canyon here at the end of in August. My birthday's August 3rd. And the buffalo hunt starts August 4th. So I'm going to do it. And a special shout out to Dave in Texas. That honey is absolutely fantastic. I'm trying to be more sparing with this honey. All right. The other one, I know I went through that jar in about a week and a half. Really good honey. And so this other one, he sent me about 2 pounds, and I'm really trying to be careful with this honey.
Okay, so let me tell you what we ought to do. My mother-in-law, my boys and my wife went camping with my mother-in-law. I stayed home. I worked, and quite frankly, I enjoyed a quiet house for 3 days. It was fantastic. But Sandra brought home this biscuit that Carol had made. And Steve, I kid you not, it's probably the best biscuit I've ever had. It was big, but it wasn't dense. It was thick, but it was airy. It was, it was not chewy, but it was like full. It was the best biscuit. So I'm going to get Carol's biscuits, and I'm going to come out there, and we're going to get Dave's honey, and we're going to have biscuits and honey, and it's going to be awesome.
I like to take my Dutch oven.
Yeah.
And I like to make what's called we call them cat head biscuits.
Okay.
And we take a big spoonful of dough, and we just dump it in that skillet with that oil just buzzing. And then we close the lid on it. And then here's the deal. When we was at the kids' camp, Uncle Bud and I would get around the Dutch oven, and we'd say, now, kids, when I lift up the lid, those biscuits are going to float up. So Bud has to grab them one at a time. And so the kids would be watching, but they were fluffy in the middle, crispy on the top, crispy on the bottom, and then that honey and butter in the middle. It's delicious.
It's so good. We're making folks are getting mad at us now, Steve. I can just feel it. Folks are getting mad. They're saying like, dag nabbit, I don't have a cheat day. Dag nabbit, that's not in my diet. Dag nabbit, I don't know how to make biscuits. Folks, we're so glad that you're here. We'll stop talking about biscuits. Thanks for hanging out. Join us next week. We would love to have you spend a little bit more time with us. Until then, God bless, take care, and enjoy.
Enjoy.